Welcome to Policing TV. Each week, we will explore the highlights from our latest videos, diving into topics like AI, technology, drugs, and the people shaping the future of policing. In this first clip of the week, Commissioner Clark reveals the reality behind policing Anguilla, far from the paradise stereotype. He explains the pressures, risks, and challenges his small team faces before diving into the year's most difficult period.
We have had 10 murders this year. Not all of them gang-related, but 10 murders. Put that into context of a force which should have 130 officers, and I currently have 105. You can imagine the difficulties and the challenges that presents around proper and effective investigation, public confidence. So from that point of view, just managing a day job is particularly challenging. The other thing about being the commissioner is, the community and the people on the island see it as a very influential and important role. And you have a very big part to play in the community. And therefore, it is not unusual to start your day very early and finish your day very, very late, simply because of stuff that you have been invited to, or simply because nearly everybody on the island's got your telephone number. And if they're not happy, they're going to ring the commissioner. From a point of view of getting a lot of downtime, there isn't a lot. There really isn't. Now, I love that. I love to be involved with the community and be fully engaged. But when there's a lot going on, your day can be very, very claustrophobic sometimes, almost. I was having the conversation yesterday. We've some colleagues over from the FCDO, and just explaining that sometimes of how you manage the risk. Particularly if people have taken you into their confidence and want to tell you something that perhaps has an Article 2 implication, just how do you manage that? Because it doesn't have the big apparatus of the intelligence world that you would be used to in the UK. So personally, I love it. I absolutely love it, but it is the most challenging professionally thing I have ever done.
Well, thanks. I mean, one of the things you touched on there, the FCDO, what sort of support do you get from the other territories and I guess the UK in terms of delivering what you need to?
So exceptional, if I can put it like that. If I look at my other colleagues in the territories, when we were at our 8th or 9th murder, it was a case of we are overwhelmed, we need mutual aid. And Cayman stepped up, sent us 10 officers for about 2 months. So I'm very grateful to Commissioner Walton in Cayman for doing that, because without that additional assistance, it would have been much more difficult just to put a lid on what was going on the island. I'll talk about some other types of mutual aid I get from across the Caribbean, but in slightly different ways. But from the FCDO, we couldn't survive or operate as effectively as a force without the assistance that we get from them, whether it's providing technical assistance or software assistance, or in actual fact, people assistance.
In this clip, Samir Datt explains how India's Digital Investigators Association was created to bring order, standards, and collaboration to a fragmented digital forensics landscape, uniting professionals to tackle modern cyber and tech-driven crime.
Right. So, this was way before COVID. What happened was that we found that information about digital investigations was really patchy and splattered all over the place, and there were pockets of people who were offering different kinds of services. They were kind of, there were no standards that were being followed. It was a colorful quilt, and things were like really, really messy. So we thought that let's try and bring some order into the madness, give some direction to the mayhem, and get everybody in together and point it in the right direction, and also try and understand what the law enforcement agencies, the different police forces, and the people who form part of this ecosystem, what are their real problems on the ground, because there's solution providers at one end, there are the actual users at the other end, and everybody's working on different parts of the elephant, so to speak. Somebody's grabbed the tail, somebody the trunk, and so on and so forth. So we thought that let's try and bring some focus to the whole thing, and that's when the Digital Investigators Association was formed. And we got around and we were doing events like the DICE, which was the Digital Investigators Conference and Exhibition, and that was extremely focused. We had a number of very amazing speakers adding value. We had a judge from the Supreme Court who would provide us his valuable time, and he would talk about the judicial appreciation of digital evidence, for example. And then there were people who would come and talk about from the telecom regulators. They would come and talk about the different issues in investigating telecom related crime and using the telcos for extracting data. And then we would talk about things like video, and we talk about things like audio. We talk about extracting data from SIM cards, for example, damaged SIM cards, because at that time we were having a lot of these remote detonations, IEDs and stuff, and they would use SIM cards for that and stuff like that. So a lot of things would be topical, but it would be of relevance. And because we had people from different agencies and we were bringing in a lot of best practices, we also had a number of international speakers. So we would get people in from different parts of the world, and there was a lot of value add going on. And in fact, it's sort of run down a bit now because of COVID. Because when COVID hit us, everything went ground to a halt, and we need to get that up and running again.
In this last clip of the week, John Gilly-Ross explains how combining police and fire governance transformed Essex, improving standards, protecting fire service funding, and while giving panels a clearer view of frontline reality.
The thing is, it takes a very brave commissioner to go towards taking over the governance of, and there were a number of reasons for that. One of which is that they only get £3,000 more a year to take on quite a sizable chunk of additional work. Yeah, so the incentive there is, well, why bother for 3,000? Yeah, so I think there needs to be a bit of a view on that, from an outsider. But actually, more important than that, it's known through reports, etc., that some of the fire and rescue services, say back in 2017, were, let's just say, of a culture that wasn't acceptable for the future. Let's leave it perhaps like that, yeah? And that things needed to change. And it's quite difficult to change, incrementally year by year, but they needed to change rather rapidly. And Essex was one of those. Well, I'm not talking out of turn here. I'm talking about what's in the public domain at that particular time. The difference it's made is significant. The public may not know the difference, yeah, but from an employment perspective, from a good place to work and a place that people want to join, it really has improved. And it's difficult to put your finger on why that has been the case, but it's definitely meant it's it's better. It's highlighted the fact that the fire and rescue funding from the government is not ring-fenced, which means if you haven't got a responsible commissioner looking at those things, it could go off rail. And also it is opened up for, let's just say, authorities who have got control of the fire and rescue service to use the funding and the reserves in a way that isn't necessarily improving the fire and rescue service itself.
As far as the panel is concerned, John, do you have members of your panel that have a particular interest in fire and have become subject matter experts, or they concentrate on the fire part of the agenda more so than others?
Well, as far as Essex is concerned, there are members that were many years ago the fire authority members, and they drop off year by year because things change. But actually, I encourage all of the panel, and all of the panel take up the offer of looking behind the curtain of operational awareness. I like to call it a curtain because, as you are very aware, that we're not supposed to be involved with the operational aspects of policing or fire and rescue.
Thank you for watching. Tune in next week.